Welcome back to Stoic Mindset Wisdom, where we peel back the layers of psychology, culture, and human behavior to uncover truths most people ignore. Now, let me ask you something straight away. Why is it that a part of the human body so small and so universal can trigger so much shock, shame, and silence, depending only on whether it appears on a man or a woman? I'm talking about women's nipples. Biologically natural, medically essential, and psychologically fascinating yet in today's society. They carry a weight of secrecy and taboo that makes them more than just anatomy. They have become symbols of power, shame, censorship, and desire, all wrapped into one tiny detail of the human body. But here's where it gets interesting. While the world has turned female nipples into a subject of controversy, psychology reveals a much deeper story, one that exposes not just biology, but also how culture rewires our perception of reality itself. In this video, we're going to explore the shocking truth about women's nipples, not in the way the media sensationalizes them, but in a way that cuts into the heart of human psychology, social conditioning, and cultural double standards. Because once you understand this hidden story, you'll never look at society's rules around the body the same way again. Chapter 1. Biology. The design nature perfected to begin. Strip away the cultural noise and look at pure biology from an evolutionary perspective. Women's nipples serve a critical purpose: nourishment of life. During pregnancy and childbirth, hormonal changes transform the breast into one of the most efficient biological systems ever designed, able to produce and deliver perfectly balanced nutrition for a newborn. But that's not all. The nipple complex isn't just a feeding system. It's a neurological hub. Its layers of sensitive nerve endings, smooth muscle fibers, and responsive tissue make it one of the body's most reactive zones. Every slight change in temperature, touch, or hormonal state sends powerful signals to the brain, connecting biology with emotion. Here's a fascinating detail you probably didn't know. Neuroscientific studies show that nipple stimulation activates the exact same areas of the brain as genital stimulation. The somatosensory cortex, which maps how our body feels, places the nipples in a direct line with areas that trigger arousal, intimacy, and deep emotional bonding. So while society may try to downplay or overplay them biologically, nipples are not passive. They're one of nature's most multifunctional designs, combining survival, intimacy, and psychological depth into a single feature. Chapter 2. The psychological twist. Why taboo exists now. Here comes the twist that will probably make you rethink everything. If biology shows us that nipples are functional and universal, why then do women's nipples carry so much cultural weight, while men's are completely ignored? The answer lies in something called sexual dimorphism in perception. That's a complicated way of saying society assigns different meanings to the same body part depending on whether it belongs to a man or a woman. Think about it. Men's nipples are shown everywhere on beaches, in magazines, even in advertising. No one blinks. But women's nipples, they're censored on television, blurred out on social media, hidden under layers of clothing, and policed by strict cultural norms. Why? Not because biology demands it, because culture teaches us to see it that way. Psychologists call this conditioning. It's like we're trained to see red lights as stop and green lights as go. Society trains us to respond emotionally to certain body parts. In cultures where breasts are normalized as natural, such as some tribal societies, people don't react with shock or shame. They see them as simply part of life. But in societies with stricter modesty rules, the exact same anatomy becomes taboo. The nipple isn't inherently shocking. The shock is manufactured. This raises an unsettling question. If our emotional response can be shaped so easily by culture, what else about our understanding of gender, bodies, and desire might be more about programming than truth? Chapter 3. The hidden power of perception. Here's where things get even more fascinating. The more something is forbidden, the more power it carries in the human mind. This is a principle well known in psychology. Scarcity creates value. When women's nipples are censored, hidden, or restricted, the mind reacts by placing more importance on them. In fact, brain imaging studies reveal that novelty and taboo heighten attention. The less you see something, the stronger your reaction when you finally do. That means censorship doesn't just protect modesty, it may actually amplify desire, curiosity, and even obsession. So ironically, it's the very rules society created too. Protect morality may have created the opposite effect, turning something ordinary into something extraordinary. But this isn't just about sexuality. It's also about power. By controlling who can show what, society reinforces gender hierarchies, rules of modesty, and the boundaries of public versus private identity. And here's the real shocking part. This cultural double standard doesn't just shape how men see women, it shapes how women see themselves. Body image, confidence, shame, and self-worth, all of these are silently influenced by how society treats something as simple as a nipple. Cliffhanger. What society isn't? Ready to admit so? Let's pause here. We've uncovered the biology. We've revealed the psychology. We've exposed the cultural double standards, but we haven't answered the biggest question yet. What happens to an entire generation when natural biology is censored, sexualized, and stigmatized, sometimes all at once? Could it be that the shocking truth about women's nipples isn't about anatomy at all, but about how society quietly uses them to control perception, identity, and even freedom? Stick around, because in the next part, we'll dive into history, media, and hidden psychological experiments that reveal just how deep this conditioning goes. And trust me, you won't look at the world the same way again. Chapter 4. History. How society built the taboo to understand why women's nipples are so censored today. We have to look back at history, because this taboo wasn't always there, it was built. In ancient civilizations, nudity carried very different meanings. In many African and indigenous cultures, women's breasts were not sexualized, but seen as natural, maternal, and symbolic of fertility. A woman's chest was often celebrated in art, sculpture, ritual not hidden in shame, even in ancient Greece. Female statues often depicted bare chests to represent beauty, nurturing, and divine femininity. The nipple was a symbol of life, linking women to goddesses and creation itself. But as history moved into stricter religious and patriarchal frameworks, things began to shift. In medieval Europe, the rise of Christian modesty redefined women's bodies as sources of temptation. Breasts, once symbols of life, were reframed as symbols of sin. And with that came centuries of covering, censoring, controlling. The nipple became not just anatomy, but a moral battleground. Its visibility or invisibility was tied to ideas of purity, shame, and control over women's place in society. Fast forward to the Victorian era, where modesty became law. Women's clothing covered almost every inch of the body. And here lies the paradox. The more society hid the female body, the more it became fetishized. Desire grew in proportion to secrecy. Now enter the 20th century. With media, film, and advertising, the female body was pulled into the spotlight, but in a carefully controlled way. Cleavage was shown, but nipples were blurred. Seduction was allowed, but only within the lines drawn by men in power. And here's the shocking part. Even today, in the age of digital freedom, we're still living under those same invisible rules. Social media bans female nipples, but not male ones. Television censors women's chests, but not men's. The double standard, built centuries ago, continues to shape how we see the world. So ask yourself, is this about morality or about control? Chapter 5. Media marketing. And the psychology of censorship. Here's something you may have noticed without realizing it. The media doesn't just reflect culture, it shapes it. And when it comes to women's nipples, media has turned censorship into a billion-dollar industry. Think about advertising. Brands use cleavage to sell perfume, clothes, or even hamburgers, but they carefully avoid crossing the line into full exposure. Why? Because censorship keeps the curiosity alive. The less you're allowed to see, the more power the unseen detail holds. And media executives know this. By walking the line between suggestion and censorship, they turn attention into profit. It's a psychological trick called selective visibility. The brain pays more attention to what's hinted at than what's fully revealed, which means the nipple, though hidden, becomes a marketing weapon, an invisible trigger of attention, desire, and memory. Now, think about Hollywood. Male chests are shown without question. Superheroes, athletes, actors saw bare-chested on screen, but for women, directors cut the frame, change the costume, or even edit scenes digitally. The result, one body part becomes a line of separation between what's acceptable and what's off limits. And here's the irony. Censorship hasn't made society healthier. It has made people more obsessed. Studies show that when something is repeatedly censored, the brain assigns higher emotional value to it, which means the more media hides female nipples, the more psychologically powerful they become. So ask yourself, if media stopped censoring tomorrow, would society finally see them as normal? Or has the conditioning run so deep that it would take generations to undo?